If we note that all the commissioners are present except Mr. Teeters, hopefully he'll be coming on pretty soon.
Let me, I need to get the report function.
Okay.
I don't know why. It was set to. What is this sidebar? There.
In progress.
You set? Is there a motion to approve the agenda and approve the minutes of June 19th?
Motion.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. And there is a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Regular business consideration of possible action, the report of the police department on the monthly traffic enforcement safety plan. Lieutenant?
Basically, crashes are kind of holding steady, kind of around the same they were last year. Traffic stops are down, but citations are up a little bit. We did have traffic officers, one's on vacation for 2 months and one was injured on duty. He's gonna be coming back on or a week from Monday, I think. He'll be back full duty, so we'll be back, well, it's a lot more strength in the traffic unit when they get back. Lots of deployments. In the summertime, we get the speed grant from the state and also the pedestrian and bicycle safety grant. We've already done one of the pedestrian grants we partnered with Wello, which is a wellness nonprofit in the city, and they work with not only our agency but also the surrounding agencies and put together some pedestrian safety. We already did one enforcement and caught a lot of people. That was at Eliza and Webster. That's one of our largest complaints, is crossing Webster south of the hospitals there. And we caught a lot of people violating the crosswalk enforcement over there, so we took care of that. There's going to be several more coming this next month and throughout the summer. The speed enforcement, we have 7 deployments this month alone for speed enforcement. We got a late start to that because of the state took a long time to get our
Do you know the areas
application
that are going to be covered?
well, this is the speed enforcement task force, so it involves all the neighboring jurisdictions. We all come together and we're going to be going out to Ashwaubenon one day and then Green Bay. We'll be in Green Bay twice, on the 11th and the 27th.
Okay.
And the other speed task force will be doing in other jurisdictions. The pedestrian ones are all in Green Bay. Those are all local. Those aren't a task force, so we don't involve the other jurisdictions. They have their own enforcement that they do. And then we still have extra money to spend from the task force for OWIs, so we are hitting OWIs really hard this summer. We're going to be having 8 deployments next month, which is unprecedented. It's just been getting really hard to get people to sign up for them. We haven't had the participation from the neighboring agencies as much as we have in the past. Even within our own agency, it's very difficult to get officers to sign for the overtime because there's other overtime available. So we're extending them to, we're gonna have 8 of them next month in August. We have 4 of them this month in De Pere, Brown County, Green Bay, and Pulaski, and next month we're gonna have 8 of them. So hopefully we'll be catching a lot of drunk drivers. In terms of predictive analysis for enforcement priority areas, areas that the computer predicted is going to be high for number of accidents. The top 4 areas in the city are all on East Mason Street between Webster and Bayard. or no, actually Bellevue Street. East Mason and Bellevue to Webster is the,
All four of them are?
All four of them along that area.
Yeah, I go there all the time, I can understand that.
The Packerland always comes up because it uses 3 years worth of data, Packerland and Mason. And that used to be a high accident area. It's really gone down quite a bit since they put in the barriers and the, not allow it, yeah, the construction went on over there and whatnot. So we aren't including those areas because that data's all gonna change in the next couple of years, so. That's it for the traffic safety plan. Anybody got any questions about anything?
Questions?
No questions, but one comment. Crossing over the bridge, that's the first time I've ever seen that red and blue flashing light on the speed board.
Is it on the speed board now? Yeah, I think they,
So I guess it is a question. Is
Yeah.
that new? I've never, that caught me off guard the first time I saw someone in front of me set it
somebody
off.
else mentioned that to me. I didn't know we had that feature on there.
Yeah, it's flashing red and blue, so I think
It
it's
might-
actually
They've had that in Depew for a while
Have they?
on Main Street Bridge.
Yeah,
Not,
if you're
not
going-
that I would ever speed across the bridge, of course. However,
But you saw somebody else speed across
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But when
But-
you're further back, it does actually catch you off guard because I thought there was a cop up ahead and there wasn't.
Yeah, somebody else had told me about that. I didn't know we had that feature on there. So somebody must have discovered the feature and turned it on. There's a lot of hidden features on that thing. There's,
Okay.
you know, the operation manual is this thick on that thing, so somebody must have found that feature and turned it
Well, it's
on
an
because somebody
amusing
else
feature.
mentioned it to me, so.
Yeah.
They caught your eye.
It caught my eye and that's why I was like, if those are on all of them or if that was a new one, I wasn't sure.
Was that eastbound or westbound on the bridge?
I was going to the west side.
Okay,
Any other questions?
It's right over by the Ashland exit.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good spot. There's a lot of speeders on that bridge.
Oh yeah, and I saw it and I laughed because it did make people kind of slow down. So until they catch
Great.
on, maybe it'll work a little while.
Then we'll remove it, we'll put in a real police car up there and
There you go.
Motion to receive and place on file.
There's a motion to receive and place on file. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item number 2, Lieutenant, you want to take that one too? The quarterly serious injury and
Yeah.
fatal crashes report.
Quarterly fatal accident summary, we had 2 fatals in the second quarter of this year. The first one was on April 18th. That was a pedestrian female, 73 years old, crossing Mason Street on foot near 16th. A speeding car driving eastbound struck the woman. The pedestrian went up over the hood of the car and landed on the street. People started CPR, but were unable to revive the female. The car fled the scene, was found by a Green Bay officer several blocks from the scene. Obviously, it had extensive damage from the collision. The driver was arrested for homicide by intoxicated use of a vehicle. He was 23 years old and said he had been drinking at the casino all day. He also had a dash cam that videoed the entire incident, so that's gonna,
Wonder if that's going to show up in court.
I'm gonna guess it's gonna help our case immensely. The second one was on May 6th, a single car accident. Drove off the road at the eastbound just before the Nitschke Bridge, which is the Dousman Street Bridge. Drove off the road where there's a slight curve in the road. The vehicle continued straight, jumped the curb, went over the grass, over the revetment stone, and then directly into the Fox River. The vehicle sank, and the car and the body of the driver, the only person that was in the vehicle, was recovered by the dive team. The cause of death was later determined to be drowning as a direct result of the car crashing into the river and sinking. Alcohol was a factor in that incident also.
Okay. Any questions? Is there a motion to receive and place on file?
Make a motion.
Okay. Been moved by Steve, second by Kasha. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, thank you, Lieutenant. Consideration and possible action on the request of the Department of Public Works that the city enter into an agreement with Imperial Suppliers for the request to install a rectangular rapid flashing beacon system on Mason Street, introduced or requested by Alders Scannell and Johnson. Dave, you want to take that one?
Yep, and just for clarity, it's Madison Street and Mason Street. for
Oh,
the
I'm
record.
sorry.
Yes, so your agenda packets should include the attachment of the draft agreement. Now, this agreement is pretty much boilerplate for others that we already have in place, like with Green Bay Packaging, for example. So the wording really doesn't change much, just the names do. It has had our legal department's eyes on it, and they've reviewed it and returned it as well, with no changes to it. So just for a little bit of background, I'm sure many of you know where Pine Street ramp exits over onto Madison Street, right across the street. That building has always been a business occupied building. I think it was Felt Properties for many, many years. And Imperial Supplies bought it 3 or 4 years ago and moved in, and it did change up some of the pedestrian patterns in that area. So it's really been kind of a twofold process where we've had not only complaints from motorists on North Madison Street of pedestrians in the street, whether they're coming to work or not, or just their commute, so we've actually fielded some complaints for that. As well as the company, Imperial Supplies, and their representatives coming to us asking to see if there's anything that can be done to improve the safety for their employees across the street. So this happened just around COVID, when a lot of the discussions were taking place. And so, long story short, fast forward to today, we did come to an agreement with the company and internally with staff on how to actually do this. And step one happened probably about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, where we just put up some pedestrian warning signs. So if you drive by it today, you'll see them in both directions. But as of late, we did find a place where we could add a mid-block crossing. So have 2 ADA-style curb ramps on either side of Madison Street. It'll be roughly just south of the main access to the ramp. And they have a current carriage ramp that would be coming out, kind of lines up with their building access. So it's just south of there. So as part of the reconstruction anyway, they have those ramps that would come out, and then it would just line up. So this is something that we can definitely work with on our end. Now it's pretty common and typical for anytime you have a location such as this, that if it's the business that's kind of creating the traffic issue, that they would be responsible for the payment and the maintenance of it. So, and again, this is very typical of other agreements that we have in place. So this one is really no different at all. So, we'll be coming up with a cost estimate and everything, but I know others that we've done in the past, they're roughly around $10,000, give or take, 1,000 or 2,000 here. But
Okay.
if there's any issues with the installation, it could cost a little bit more. But and then there's the markings, and this one, because it's mid-block, and now that we have this new paint machine that we're using on the citywide RFP project, we'll probably most likely use that for high durability. So, with that, I don't know if you have any questions on the agreement or
Any
not.
questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Request consideration of possible action, request of Alder Johnson to establish a four-way stop condition at the intersection of Howard Street and Hazel Street.
Looking at me?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it hurt something. So, I did lay out in your agenda packet a lot of background on this. I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to look at it, but I'll try to condense it as much as possible. So we have a typical intersection. Maybe I'll just share the screen here so we can look at what we actually have. And there's photos as well within the packet, but as you can tell, this is just two local streets, but they're in proximity to Bird's Eye, which AKA also the Pickle Factory, many people may know it. It's a two-way yield condition, so the north and southbound movement, Hazel Street has the yield, and Howard Street, this is uncontrolled. So the request is for a four-way stop. One of the things that I pointed out in the agenda packet is the natural evolution of intersection traffic control. So what the request is, it would actually be taking kind of a jump or going a little bit out of the norm of what that would be, because the natural progression would be to a two-way stop. If the two-way yield is not working or there's issues with it identifying, you want to consider going to a two-way stop, and then after that to a four-way stop. So just wanted to definitely clear that up, just so that's, I guess, kind of on your mind and your decision-making tonight. Now, the Alder had cited some crashes, and the Alder is correct. It's nothing that would really flag us for, multi-way stop or anything that, there isn't any serious injuries or anything like that that are occurring at this location. At the time he asked me, I found 4, which actually one really was not, it was down the street hitting a parked car, but what I found on the other 3 prior was that there was a pattern. It was southbound and westbound. So.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
So there was a pattern, so that was a little bit on the interesting side, and we're seeing roughly about 1 crash per year. Now, at a location that has yield signs, I would say, should we be going up to stop? So next thing it is, I went out in the field and looked, and like I said, in the agenda packet, you can see some of the photos, and of course I wanted to look at the southbound movement and then looking east at the westbound traffic. And that's when I did notice a little bit of compromised sight distance. See if we can get an interactive view here. Yeah, this is the location. So, yeah, that is relatively new. So yeah, this tree was here for obviously many, many years. Must have been an ash cut. But as you can tell, you have a large mature tree here. You got this utility pole in the way. You can see down there, but of all the approaches, that definitely seemed to be the one that was the most compromised. Not the worst thing in the world, but for a two-way yield and seeing that we're seeing the same type of crash repeating, I would say probably should have some consideration to do something at this location. So when I actually stepped out in the field, I did see some people that were kind of hanging out by the intersection and wanted to see if they were locals and talk to them. And so I heard a lot of the same things that the Alder had discussed in the past, a lot of it's speed, which doesn't surprise me. And if you read in the packet, one thing I noticed is that there's a number of stop signs if you're on Howard Street. So this is the only one that doesn't have the stop, but if there would be any sort of a control added to it, it would just be 4 stops in a row, which is, if any of those are unwarranted, I can almost guarantee that could be part of the reason that speed is happening in the mid-block situation. So with that, I really wouldn't recommend necessarily stopping Howard Street, but seeing how I've already identified something on that southbound movement, I think the natural progression from a two-way yield to a two-way stop is the most logical thing in this situation, so that's my recommendation.
Questions?
So what's the speed limit on that, uncontrolled?
25.
Any other questions?
By the way, thanks, Tom, for the updated crash info. Because there was one on, was it last month? On June
Yeah, it was
6th.
recent.
Yeah. But again, you know, we're seeing a lot of distracted driving in some of these reports as well. This one I think was at northbound and westbound, and
Yeah.
there was a
Something in the back
passenger in the
seat.
back, some distraction that way, so it wasn't necessarily device related, but more or less internal to the car.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to change the yield to a stop.
Four-way stop?
No, to.
Two-way? Okay.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments?
I think that makes sense. Make the next
It's
step.
the logical step.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next meeting is August 21st. I would hope that you folks could stick around briefly after the meeting for a special presentation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion. I'll
Oh,
second.
fast.
I'll back
All
out.
third.
Yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.